I'm standing in Smyrna, which is the second church to which the Apostle John wrote the letters to the 7 churches. Smyrna at the time was a leading city in the Roman world at the time of Paul, the apostle, who is thought to have started the church here. Smyrna is modern-day Izmir, and it's located on the Aegean Sea. It was such a prosperous city that it contested with Ephesus and Pergamum as the leading city in Roman Asia at the time. It was a place of great commerce. This market where we're standing, this agora, was the largest agora in the ancient world. This city also boasted schools of medicine and science. It was a place where Olympic type of competitions were contested. It had a theater that sat over 20,000 people. And it was here that a church was started, again, as I said, by the Apostle Paul. In the letter that the Apostle John writes, it's only one of 2 churches, the other church is Philadelphia, where there is no corrective rebuke that's given to this particular church. So it was a church that was doing well in that sense. The pattern in the 7 churches for each letter was typically started with a revelation of Jesus, an aspect of Jesus' nature and character. And actually for this particular church, it was he who is the first and the last who has died and came to life. And then typically after that there was a commendation, and the commendation for this church was that I know your tribulation and your poverty, but that you really are rich, and you know the slander of those who say that they are Jews and are not. Do not fear that you are about to suffer, what you're about to suffer. Behold, the devil is about to throw some of you into prison, and you're going to be tested for 10 days. You will have tribulation, but be faithful unto death, and I will give you the crown of life. And that be faithful unto death, I'll give you the crown of life is an exhortation, a prophetic sort of corrective or exhortation that's given to the church. And there is no correction for this church, which is one of the patterns. And then he promises that those who endure will conquer and will not be hurt by the second death. It's interesting that one of the 3 major apostolic fathers, these are men that followed the apostles, lived here. His name was Polycarp, and he was actually appointed the bishop at the beginning of the 2nd century, first half of the 2nd century of Smyrna. There's a church here in his honor. And Polycarp, along with Clement and Ignatius, were the 3 apostolic fathers. They were men who talked to the apostles, those who had been with Jesus and seen Jesus. And Polycarp was a disciple of the apostle John, and they believe that he was appointed as a bishop by the apostle John. He was a man who actually ended up being martyred here, which is prophetic in some ways with this particular letter, saying that you're going to endure, but you're promised eternal life. And when they were burning him at the stake, and the fire by the wind was blown away from him, it's almost like it billowed like a sail away from him, and the fire was not killing him. And so they, legend has it, they took a sword and stabbed him to put him to death. It's interesting and bears noting that Smyrna means myrrh, which was used in the embalming of the dead. The predictive warning of suffering in this letter to those who lived here in Smyrna, coupled with the overcoming promise in Revelation to be faithful unto death and I'll give you the crown of life, had a prophetic significance upon the Christian population in this city throughout the centuries, up to as recently as the early 1900s. Smyrna is known as the infidel city under Muslim rule, and the persecution and martyrdom of its Christian population culminated in 1922 during the liberation of Turkey from an attempted Greek occupation, where tens of thousands of Armenian and Greek Christians died in what is now known as the catastrophe or burning of Smyrna. And so this is a place of historic significance. You can see it's in modern day Izmir, so it's just a small area, almost the size of a large city park, that has the ruins yet. But it is a place of history for the early Christian church. So this is Smyrna.